Hey, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce, joined tonight by Mr. Joe Kilgallen. We are here, unfortunately, to talk about a Cubs loss. Cubs lose in Cincinnati tonight, 8-6. Unfortunately, that is after having a 2-0 lead in this one. Joe, let's just jump right into it. But first off, sir, how you doing?
I've been better. I had some tech issues. That's why we weren't on right away. So apologies to everybody. Good to see you again, Ron. Been a crazy week. The Bears gave us some good news. The Cubs looked good yesterday. We were hoping for that momentum to roll today. As you alluded to, it did not happen. And I feel like I jinxed Jake. Even though I don't believe in jinxes, I had a clip of myself in which I told people how much I love what Jake Arrieta has become this season, and we saw it as being a mentor to Adbert in spring training. And in the clip I posted like 4 or 5 days ago, I mentioned, I go, look, he's not going to have a quality start every time. He's going to have one of those starts where he goes 3 or 4 and gives up 7. So just prepare yourself, Cubs fans. But
Yeah.
overall, and then I said, but overall, I think Jake is going to keep us in every game because he's become that veteran, savvy pitcher, a guy who could figure out how to get batters out even when his stuff isn't crisp. And then he had one of those outings today. And, so for fans out there, don't be too upset. Don't think like, oh, no, woe's me. Look, that's going to happen. But, Cody and I talked about this. We missed it yesterday, Ron. We talked about this on the post game where the mindset needs to be win series. Take 2 out of 3, take 2 out of 3, take 2 out of 3, right? You need, right? We lost 5 in a row, but you don't need to get that 5 in a row back all at once. That's just – and they had much better at bats today. Chris Bryant is continuing to look like an MVP. If anything, we should just do a quick little 15-minute podcast about Chris Bryant. And yeah, man, he is just, he looks so good at the plate. This really reminds me of 2017, a lot of that year, 2016, of course. Even 2018, people forget, before he hurt his shoulder in 2018, he was on a pace better than the previous 2 seasons. But right now, he is looking fantastic. And if the Cubs were smart, and I do still think they've got smart people in charge, you got to figure out a way to lock him up. He needs to be playing long-term. Even if they do that thing I said where it's like trade him for prospects, but bring him back next year. If he's not on the Cubs 2022 roster, that'll be as colossal a mistake as when the Cubs like Greg Maddux go to the Braves over the difference of like a couple $100,000, or maybe it was $1 million, but still it was enough where Greg's like, I'll sign with you guys, but you just have to match them. And when the Cubs are like, no, we're not going, that was different ownership. So I'd like to believe that there'd be no excuse because it's going to be 100% capacity in 2022 seating. You know what I mean? A lot of ballparks, right? So I don't know about you, Ron. I'm okay with just gushing on KB. Well, the bullpen, we can talk about the bullpen, Ron. What'd you think about both Justin Steele and Dylan Maples?
Yeah, incredibly impressive tonight. And just for anybody that maybe didn't get to see that part of the game, Justin Steele went 2 innings. He did give up a run; it wasn't earned, and he gave up a hit. But 5 strikeouts for him in those 2 innings. And then Dylan Maples, a clean bill of 2 innings with 4 Ks. That is exactly what you want to see out of these 2 guys. I think Justin Steele needs to start getting a look in some high leverage situations. I think he's earned that opportunity. He's been incredibly good every time they've thrown him out there. It's really nice to see Dylan Maples coming around. Obviously, most of the time, unfortunately, it's been in kind of garbage time situations that he has pitched. But it's encouraging that if he's able to do this in garbage time, maybe, just maybe, in a high leverage situation, if you needed him, or even as a 6th inning type guy that can come in, has wipeout stuff, as long as he can keep that control good. He doesn't need to be perfect, but as long as he can keep it average, that's all he needs to do. He's got the stuff. He's got the stuff to be an elite relief pitcher in this league. So, ironically, we're sitting here talking about an 8-6 loss, Joe. And ironically, though, there was a lot of good things that happened in this game. Javi looked like he was seeing the ball well. He hit a couple of high fastballs, for at least good contact. He was getting some good ride behind him, which was encouraging. Obviously, as you mentioned, KB, I'm all for the KB gushing for 15 minutes type stuff because KB's just been absolutely out of this world this year. And they did a lot of good things, and at least they fought back in this game. I think that's something that at least is a silver lining we can take from this thing. I don't love silver linings personally, and I know as Johnny Nani, our good friend here at Onside Sportsnet, says, silver linings are a bunch of bullshit, but that is kind of a silver lining. They did battle back. It was a rough outing for Jake, and ironically, so I'm glad you mentioned the jinxing Jake. I started writing an article today. It's asking, is Jake the bona fide ace of the Cubs staff? And I feel like I kind of jinxed him too. So I felt like we were kind of due. But like you mentioned, though, I mean, Jake's been incredible all year. He's given the Cubs
First
essentially
bad start.
five. Yeah, I mean, essentially 5 quality starts every time that he's been out so far, except for this game. He was due for a bad game. It happens. And the ball flies in Cincinnati in a different way, and they have a lot of hot hitters right now. But you mentioned it. I mean, Jake, we were due for that 7-run game, and that's exactly what he gave up. 7 earned in this one. Unfortunately, only went officially 3 1/3. Ryan came in and bailed him out, and then as we mentioned, Steele and Maples getting those 2 innings apiece. But yeah, man, KB is the lone bright spot. I remember tweeting from the Cubs on Tap account tonight during this game. Thank goodness for KB. That's it. That's the tweet. That was all I said. Thank goodness for KB, because he's at least the bright spot. And I agree with you. If he's not on this roster in 2022, that is a massive mistake from this Cubs front office.
Yeah, exactly. It would be. It would be just, and I got to imagine it'd be from higher on up, because I don't, the Cubs, Jed helped scout him. He drafted him. I got to imagine there's some love for Chris Bryant. He's everything both him and Rizzo are the 2 guys where I'm just like, they're cornerstones. You just can't let those guys be in other uniforms. And I know we have a love affair for Hobby too. Hobby did disappoint me with 1 at bat. There was a runner on third base and less than 2 outs. He's got to get that run in. You want to be in that elite category. You just have to. Yeah. That was kind of a momentum shift. The Cubs were up 2-0. The first couple innings were looking good. They didn't add on right there where they could have easily. They had runners at second and third with 1 out and didn't add on. And then the following inning, 3 runs scored by the Reds. Joey Votto his 300th home run. Tip of the hat to Joey Votto. I think he's probably every Cubs fan's favorite non-Cub.
Yes,
I don't know too many. I don't know anybody who's like, you know what? Fuck Joey Votto, right? Like, it's Joey Votto. He's a likable guy.
Agreed.
Obviously, I hope he goes 0 for 8 the next 2 games. It's Chris Bryant. It's just also he plays a very good third base. Mm-hmm. He plays a very good left, a very good right. He could probably be a great first baseman. Yes. Just he's one of those guys where I just feel confident giving him 8 years. Mainly because also he's not a partier. He's not a drinker. Mm-hmm. He's not a prima donna. I think he's a big family guy. Yes. His dad played minor league ball. He wants to do right by his wife and son. And I just think that's a guy you invest in. And he does want to be here. I don't care. There's some fans who's like, Boris is like, this idea that, Boris's players don't extend with the team they're in. That's been proven false. He's gotten a few guys lately who stayed with the teams that they've had. And also they work for Boris, So at the end of the day, if KB is like, I want to stay with the Cubs, give me the best deal you can with the Cubs. As long as it's obviously if some team comes way over the top of the Cubs, he's going to go there. But if all the offers are about the same, I imagine he chooses the Cubs. But why even do that? Pay this man. Pay him. You mentioned the bullpen there. Sorry for rambling here a little bit. Justin Steele, like Nico, has made it so it's like you can't send him back down.
I agree.
I know there's small sample sizes, but there's a trust issue that David Ross was talking about after the other 2 nights ago, saying we're still trying to find out who we could trust. Justin Steele's proven to be a guy you could trust. I know he came in with it wasn't like high pressure because it was 8-2 or something like that, 7-2 when he came in. But still, every time I've seen him, he's he doesn't walk people. He's in control. He's got some life on the fastball. He's a lefty arm. There's just no way to send him back down, and I hope he stays for good.
I agree. I think that analogy was perfect too with Nico. Like you can't send either one of these guys back down right now. There's a reason you DFA'd Workman. Like he wasn't working out. I'm gonna miss that pun incredibly much of his last name, but he just wasn't getting the job done. And you mentioned too. I think if Steele's a righty, he's a little more of like he's been pitching well, but we have a lot of right. He's a lefty. And that's the one thing that this bullpen misses right now is an elite lefty outside of our boy Andrew Chafin. So like if Steele can be that guy, why not? You know what I mean? Why not have him be that kind of 7th, inning guy? Or if Chafin has pitched a lot recently, you let him be that 8th inning guy on a certain night. I think he can
Ron, real quick,
fill that role.
I agree, Ron. I agree. But real quick, when you said Andrew Chafin, did you mean the Andrew Chafin who liked one of Cubs on Tap's tweets today?
He
Is it
sure
that
did.
Andrew Chafin? He
It
sure
sure
did like one
was.
of our
He
tweets.
sure did. He's the man. He's just he as a human being. Obviously, our boy Cody Del Mendo, Cody on tap,
And Cody commented, by the
loves.
way.
He does, and I was
We got
gonna
some
say that.
comments. Dope Red Beer, what's up? Kusuna77, what's up? We'll talk about Wilson in a second. I'm sorry. Go ahead though, Ron.
No, yeah, no, but like, I mean, Chafin just has done so well, and he's just such a Chicago guy too. Just very, nonchalant, just is himself. He's like, "What's up, everybody? How's it going?" The fans love him now. Like, if I'm Andrew Chafin, I don't want to leave the Chicago Cubs. Like, just stay in Chicago the rest of your career, retire a Cub. Like, your face is going to be on T-shirts, man. Like, people love him, and he's the best. So yeah, that was cool today seeing him. Like, and I mean, Joe, you described it beautifully. Just the pristine grace of a ballerina was just perfect. It was perfect. You couldn't beat it.
Thank you.
But no, but I mean, back to Justin Steele. I mean, I agree with you. Yeah, it hasn't been in high leverage situations, but again, every single time out, he strikes guys out. I agree. The life on the fastball is there. He's doing everything that this Cubs front office wants from a left-handed arm, especially in the bullpen. If you send him back to the South Bend site, that is just a waste. That is a waste of talent. Yeah. That is a waste of an opportunity for a guy. Like, it's just a huge waste because he's just continued to prove that he can get the job done. And I like having Kyle Ryan as kind of that back and forth guy as another left-handed arm. But again, Kyle Ryan only throws like 88, 89 miles per hour, and that's fine. But the Cubs have so much of that in their rotation already. You want guys like Steele who could come in and just throw gas as a lefty. And I mean, hell, 2 innings and he struck out 5. And then Maples comes in and strikes out 4 in 2 innings. Like, that's exactly what you want from this bullpen. So I agree with you. If Justin Steele goes back to South Bend in any capacity, we riot. We riot with pitchforks and torches because he should not be in South Bend. He should be in this bullpen.
Yeah, 100% agreed, man. Jed Hoyer said on opening day that this could be a transitional year. He refuses to use the phrase, the word, I should say it's not a phrase, the word rebuild, which I'm very happy about because everyone who follows me knows I'm very much against the idea of rebuilding. I'm for the idea of reconfiguring, reconstruction, retooling, anything like that, because there's clearly something that's not working with the offense as a whole. But there's no reason to be like, well, get rid of everybody. No, because like I said before, Chris Bryant's an MVP caliber player. Anthony Rizzo plays first base at an all-star level and is a great leader. Now we're going to talk about this guy, Wilson Contreras, who is a second best catcher in baseball, I think statistically behind Real Muto right now.
Yeah.
And a dude who we love the energy he brings. He is just a fiery player, a great human being, and just a spark. But I was reminded today he came up limp after a single, and he's having a great offensive season. And that hamstring has become a thing for him now. It's he didn't get hurt last year, but in 2019 he missed about a month. Remember, we had to trade for Machado briefly, who's with Houston, and then in 2017 he missed some time in which we had to trade for Avila.
Yeah,
I think I said that name right. So anyway, that's 2017, 2019. And hopefully, I'm hoping he's fine and it's just maybe like a week or something. But with hamstrings and at the catcher, that's a lingering thing. So I don't think you asked me a week ago, I'd be like, extend him now too.
Yeah.
You could wait until the offseason. If he comes back after only missing like a couple weeks and he puts up Wilson numbers the rest of the year where it's, he's hitting 25 home runs and batting about 275, 280 and playing that kind of defense and just being the Wilson that we love, then we could talk about an extension. But again, we have him under contract for next year. Because if he misses a full month again, and it's just like, man, these hamstrings, they don't age well, right?
Right.
That's when you look at, hey, what's Amaya hitting right now? Oh, Amaya's tearing up AA right now? Well, shit. That's something to think about because we do have some catching depth. I don't know. I just hope Wilson's okay because I'm such a fan of everything he brings to the table. But again, if it's like a transition year like Jed Hoyer alluded to, you need to put Justin Steele out there. You need to see what he could do. You need to just keep rooting for Adbert's development because that guy has ace stuff.
Yes.
I was really thinking about it. I know we talked about it a lot last night in the podcast, but the way he made Freddie Freeman look, the way he made Acuna look on a couple, he made really, really good hitters, great hitters. Freeman's the reigning MVP. and isn't and doesn't he never looks bad. He made him look bad.
Right.
Watch the highlight of the strikeout of Adbert against Freeman.
Yeah.
And someone looked up his slider is the third best as far as stuff wise goes in baseball, behind Bieber, who's a Cy Young guy, and Yu Darvish, who we know was runner up for Cy Young.
Yeah.
Adbert comes in at number 3. This is a pitch, everybody. I got to emphasize this shit. He just learned this like at the end of
Literally,
last
like,
season.
yeah, like at the end of last season. Absolutely.
That's insane. That's like picking up a guitar and then being able to do the solo to freaking All Along the Watchtower, or like, a Hendrix song, like, yeah, or
Yeah.
something. Like he's learning the a Prince solo. That's how good he went from it. It's like he
Yeah.
that fast to be like, all right, I'll learn a slider and it be that dominant. And so there is some stuff to be like, all right, this is great. I'm not
Yeah.
saying, hey, fans, give up on the season. I'm not saying that at all, because I definitely think we're going to see a Cubs sometime in May win 8 out of 10 and
Yep.
be right up there, maybe be right there, enough to the point where I hope it puts a decision to the front office where it's like, all right, well, if you could win a division, you got to go for it.
Yep.
But in the same regard, I definitely think a couple players need. I think Kimbrel gets moved in early June if this keeps up. I think they jump the market on him and try to get some team will offer him a top 100 prospect or two. You might be able to get a top 50 for him, because people get desperate for closers this time of right around
Very true.
mid-season.
Well, and especially too, and obviously, I think you and I can both agree. We hope the Cubs are in this race, and they're really not looking to trade Kimbrel. But yeah, God forbid this does continue, and it is truly that transitional year that Jed Hoyer alluded to. I mean, you have other guys that you can try as closers. Like, this can be the year that you audition closers, and you free up a lot of money by trading Kimbrel. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, Kimbrel's elite right now. He looks incredible. I love the flow. Like, he looks fantastic. But then again, God forbid, let's say they do trade Kimbrel in early June, and you do load up with some more prospects, like you mentioned, Joe. You got guys like Justin Steele that you can give an audition to. You got Burl Caraway, who you just drafted in last year's draft, who was a closer in college, who is only 6 feet tall, but he's a lefty and he throws 100 miles per hour. Like, why not give him a look? There's a lot of guys that are going to be ready that could easily, I should say easily, but could potentially take over that back end of the bullpen role as a closer. And so, if you can have a guy who's on, and don't forget, Rowan Wick is still a part of this organization. Just so happens he's dealing with the injury and they moved him to the 60-day IL. But I mean, he was essentially the closer for most of last season and even parts of 19 when Kimbrel was still kind of get his shit together. So I fully think that, that's a possibility, but I agree. I mean, again, like you said, right? There's no need to tear this thing down. Even if they struggle, like, in tonight's game, there was a lot of positives in tonight's game. Like, you can still extend a KB and a Rizzo. You can still keep a Jake Marisnick in the fold past this year.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Those are bench bats. I've been a big fan of the bench bats. I know people don't like Sogard, but Duffy, Marisnick, and Sogard.
Yeah.
Personal stuff with Sogard aside, I know a lot of people don't like, some stuff going on with that. But every time he comes up off the bench, I was surprised. They showed his numbers, and I'm like, I would have thought he was hitting better than that. And I realized, when we start him, he goes 0 for 4. But when he comes off the bench, I feel like he's always getting hits. He's always on base. So I was a little surprised to see his numbers down a little bit there. Yeah, there's still some stuff that there's like kind of figuring out a little bit. Because with the bullpen especially, they came in being like, Kimbrel's the closer. Who's the 8th inning guy? Don't know. Who's the 7th inning guy? Don't really know. But right now there's some stuff forming. You got Chafin and Steele from the left side. Jason Hamm, I was a little surprised with what happened with him this year. So hopefully he figures it out, because he looked strong at the end of last year. Yes, but then, you've got there's some live arms going right there. Trevor McGill, what a bummer, because he looked great in his couple appearances.
He did look great.
He's a guy who throws 99. There was someone, our friend of the podcast, Cubs prospect expert, Brian Smith, he posted this like screenshot where it showed the velo of all these guys. I guess they were out in Arizona at like the spring camp. Robert Stock hitting 101. It was just 99, 101, 98, 98, 98. It was just, so there's plenty of guys who throw gas or they could audition for that closer role. And, we got to wrap it up soon too, because we just wanted to have a quick little chit chat with you guys. And hopefully the Cubs get after it tomorrow and the next day. Trevor Williams is going tomorrow, I believe. and he looked good his last outing. So hopefully he's building on that. Right now, really, there's 3 starters I feel pretty good about. We just got to right the ship with Davies and Hendricks. But as far as like the closer role goes, and that's the last thing I'll say, is that Kimbrel's got an option for next year too, so that makes him a little more attractive as a trade chip. But
True.
in the book Moneyball, Billy Bean talked about how closers are kind of, it's Davies tomorrow. Thanks, because I couldn't remember who's going tomorrow. So he needs to bounce back. God, it's not a great ballpark for him right now. If he's got to keep the ball down.
Yes, he does.
God, he really needs to, because this is the worst stretch at any point in his career. And we were so high on Zach Davies. He looked dominant in spring. His first start with the club, he looked great. Everything about him just seemed like, all right, he's going to continue where he was last year with San Diego. Anyway, last thing I'll say is in the book Moneyball, Billy Beane talked about how closers are kind of overrated in a sense. Mm-hmm. And what he liked to do was find someone, put him in that role, rack up all those cheap saves. Because we forget the save stat can be overrated. How many times does a guy come in and blow away the 6, 7, 8 hitter on a team and they're up by 3 runs, but it's a save? You know what I mean? There's some saves that are, not all saves are weighted the same. Some saves are nail biters and they're tough. Other ones are like, all right, that was a cakewalk. So you could find other guys. I'm just saying though. Mm-hmm. But Kimbrel, as far as the trade chip goes, he's got that brand name. You know, he's like, oh, I remember him. He's the Hall of Famer. So I feel like we could get something nice for him. And he's pitching great. He's been amazing.
Yes, he really has. And I agree absolutely with everything you said too, right? I think, talking the rotation, I think Williams has been a very pleasant surprise so far this year. I agree. I mean, we've seen what Davies and Hendricks can do. So it's not a question of like, are these guys good enough? It's like, no, they just need to turn their shit around. Like it's guys have rough stretches. Shit happens, and I think they can absolutely turn it around. Even thinking back, to earlier in your point too, with like guys like Adbert. I mean, I think Adbert's been absolutely electric. He needs to continue to pitch. None of this sending him back to South Bend bullshit and running with 4 guys. I don't care if you have enough off days. He needs to pitch every 5th day. Like he should be pitching every 5th day. He looks that good. And I agree. I mean, right now, even with Williams, some games I'm like, overall he's been very good, but he has some moments. But besides today, like the 2 consistent guys that like, hey, we know what we're getting has been Jake and Adbert, and it's kind of refreshing. The young prodigy and the old the elder statesman are the 2 guys right now that this team can lean on. But it was a weird night. It was a weird game. They went down. They were up early thanks to KB's early home run, as well as, manufacturing some runs, which I know makes our buddy Cody Del Mendo's arm hair stand up. But, then they, the Reds just climb back into it. They blow out the Cubs essentially, but then the Cubs work their way back. So I agree. I mean, there's no need to panic. If it is truly a transition season, and you just broke it down incredibly well. Like, yeah, maybe you see a few pieces be moved. Maybe you see some guys get those auditions that they wouldn't get normally in a uber competitive season from the Cubs. But even then, like, this division is still very winnable, even if with the Cubs in a transition year. I mean, hell, the Milwaukee Brewers just put Corbin Burns on the IL too. So like, they're down arguably their best pitcher, even though Woodruff is incredibly good as well. But I think Burns is better. So they're down their best pitcher.
Burns has better stuff.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I mean, the fact that he was the first pitcher since 1906 in their first 3 starts to start a season to strike out 30 guys and not walk a single person. I mean, that's stupid, absolutely stupid. So, I agree, man. There's literally no reason to panic with this Cubs team right now. Yes, it was a brutal loss tonight. They still got 2 with Cincy. Thanks to our boy here, Kazuna 77. Davies going tomorrow. Then I would imagine that would mean that Williams then probably on
He's Sunday. Yeah, I had it flipped.
And in fairness to those, we won't be back until after Sunday's game. Saturdays for us are kind of an off day. People aren't necessarily listening to podcasts on Saturday night. We know you guys want to go to dinner. You want to have some drinks with your friends. It's all good. We want to do the same. But
have some sex.
Yeah, that too. Hey, everybody's got to get their own, right? So, but no, I agree. Tough loss tonight, but overall, I think like you said, Joe, I think it's there's still a lot of really good narratives that this team has coming up that we can really keep an eye on. The trade deadline is going to be huge for this team. What pieces do they maybe just sell off here and there? Like you said, a Kimbrel, maybe, maybe if they're really in that bad of a situation, maybe a guy like a Javi Baez is a trade deadline chip. Maybe they actually do give KB that extension and just keep him around with a guy like Rizzo. They have a lot of options, so it'll be really interesting to see.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. Again, like you, I still believe they're going to have a nice little stretch in May, and they're going to make things interesting as far as the standings go. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're an 11 and 15 team. You know what I mean? But they're probably not much better than 500 if I'm being honest too. It's, just to wrap it up, I stay tuned because like I've said in the beginning of the season, when we were going through a little bit of a rough spot, it's still the beginning of the season. What am I talking about? Tomorrow's May 1st. It's still early, everyone. Try to enjoy this because this will be, like it or not, the last hurrah with a lot of this core group of people from the 2016 World Series together. I'm not saying that some of them won't be back, because some of them will be, but some of them definitely won't be. Javi's a guy look at like right now that I would put strong money on him not being on this team next year. Rizzo, I still believe strongly will be. KB 50-50, and that's sad that it's 50-50 in my head and heart because it should not be. Wilson's under contract, so I believe he will be. Same with Hendricks, but I definitely see a lot of other moving pieces, The offense will definitely have a few different bats next year, at least 3 different bats, I imagine, to hopefully mix in with the Nico, Rizzo, KB, and Willie, and then you find some different style of players then. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Let's try to enjoy what's in front of us, and hopefully that the boys start playing better, and then we could also on the side appreciate storylines like the emergence of Adbert Alzolay, who has, I think, ace potential. And bullpen pieces like Justin Steele and all that. And you make a good call with Bro Callaway. I mean, the White Sox brought up Croquette is his name, I think.
Crochet,
and he was a guy Crochet. Thank you, Croquette. I don't watch a lot of White Sox baseball, so I just read it from that. I check box scores, so if I don't hear it out loud, I don't know how to pronounce it. He was drafted in June of last year, and they brought him up 2 months later, I believe. So as long as that's the thing with flamethrowers, if you aren't walking guys, come on up. It's not like with hitters. Hitters, you want to see X amount of at bats. Usually, I want to give a good 500 at bats in the minors before we can truly assess you, see how you react at AA, AAA.
Right.
If you're throwing 100 translates at all levels.
Everywhere, exactly. Yeah,
it's not different. So.
Yeah, I was going to say 100 just looks even more ridiculous in the minors, and it looks ridiculous in the majors too. So what difference does it make? Joe, I think you summed it up perfectly. So I think we can go ahead and look forward now to Saturday's game. And obviously, as we mentioned, not technically a preview for Sunday, but the Cubs will be back and finishing up with the Reds on Sunday. But tomorrow's game is a 3:10 start local time on what should be a beautiful day in the Chicagoland area. In Cincinnati, I would imagine it'll probably be very similar. But as I mentioned, 3:10 first pitch tomorrow, 670 to score in Marquee Sports Network for those in the Chicagoland market, WLW 700 in Valley Sports Ohio for those in the Cincinnati market. As we mentioned, the Cubs will be trotting out Zach Davies. He did lower that ERA. It's now a 9.47 on the season, and he is 1-2. And for the other side, in fairness, a guy that I think the Reds had a lot of high hopes for that's kind of struggled this year, and Luis Castillo. He's also 1-2 with a 6.29 ERA. So a guy that really is an elite pitcher, also having a bit of a rough start to this 2021 season. So Joe, I'll turn it back over to you. A little bit of a preview for tomorrow's game, and we'll get that Fly the W pick before we go ahead and sign off for the night.
All right, I'll just say a little preview and then slide into my Fly the W pick. So preview tomorrow, I think the Cubs will win 6-4. I think Luis Castillo would be a little bit better than he has been. I think the Cubs only get about 3 runs off of him, and then we add some of the bullpen. But I do think we grind out at bats. I think we take what we did in the 9th inning yesterday, and it carries over. At least that's what my hope is. And we get Luis Castillo out of there in about the 5th inning or so, maybe early, going into the 6th. And then we add a couple more runs. But I definitely think we're going to win about 6-3, 6-4. Chris Bryant continues to do well, but it'll be the return of one Ian Happ back to the starting lineup. And I see him going deep, and I think that sparks him a little bit. And we see I don't think he'll be in the leadoff spot tomorrow, though. I think we'll see him batting about 7th, and I think that'll get Ian Happ going again. I really do. With Wilson
Love it.
Contreras out tomorrow, with Contreras is going to be out tomorrow, so it'll be interesting to see who takes the spot leading off. Maybe you see Nico back there. Could be a good chance of that. Wouldn't doubt it. So, or maybe Ian Happ's back there. I don't know what Ian Happ's numbers are against Luis Castillo, but Ian Happ's my pick, fly the W player for tomorrow.
I love it. And actually, Ian Happ is a good pick in his career against Luis Castillo. He's a .462 hitter and 13 at-bats with a home run and 3 RBIs. So I think Ian Happ is an incredible pick for you, sir. And yeah, I agree. I think the Cubs do get a win tomorrow. Again, they had good at-bats tonight. Like, they drove up Wade Miley's pitch count pretty early in this game. It just, unfortunately, the Cincinnati bats got hot and did some damage to Jake, and it really didn't matter. But they grinded out a lot of at-bats. They still scored 6 runs. Sure, some of that was in quote-unquote garbage time, but they made an effort to come back. They had bases loaded in the 9th inning. Like, it wasn't like they were totally out of this game. So I think Happ is a good pick for tomorrow. I think he's got to play. They got to get him going. It's weird that he's been so cold to start the year, and it could just be, some of that pressure from last season. It could be just, a accumulation of things. But I really agree with you.
I think it was bad luck.
Yeah,
I think it was bad luck that then became mental, and
yes.
then the bad luck made him adjust his mechanics a little bit. The swing got a little long. I think taking a couple days off will get his mind right. He comes out tomorrow against a guy he's familiar with, and he gets going again.
Absolutely, 100% agree. So yeah, I think it's a Cubs win tomorrow. I feel pretty confident in that. Okay, really, this was something I thought of and I wanted to bring up just very quickly. I did see that Willie was pulled tonight purely from precaution. They don't think it's that serious. They're going to reevaluate tomorrow. Great. They're just like, hey, let's not be stupid with it. Just give him a breather. I agree. I would expect him to probably still get the day off tomorrow, no matter what, and just let Walters catch. Yeah. But it sounds like long term, it's not going to be an issue. So that's good news out of that.
That's great news.
But I'm going to go ahead, even though he doesn't have great numbers against Castillo in his career in 18 at-bats. He's a .222 hitter with only 1 RBI, but I don't really give a shit because it's KB's revenge tour this year. So I'm going to go ahead and take Chris Bryant as my fly the W pick. Obviously, the home run tonight, he looked incredible, has looked incredible all season. And I've picked him quite a few times, and he's done well for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take KB for going into tomorrow's game. And as we mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back then after Sunday's game. Sunday's game is a 12:05 start, I believe. It's either 12:05 or 12:10. So we'll be probably coming to you live at some point on Sunday afternoon, early evening, with hopefully as many of the Cubs on Tap guys as we can get. If we can get all 4 of us on here, that would be certainly pretty sweet. If not, it should be at least 2 or 3 of us. So that'll be a fun show. Joe, any final thoughts before we wrap up for the night?
Keep the faith. Go Cubs. Check out my YouTube channel for all your stand-up comedy needs. All right.
I love that plug. So for those that are listening to this, once this becomes a podcast, you missed the Joe side turn of the head with the good smile and everything, and it was just too perfect. If you haven't seen go watch the live on Twitter. That's why you got to tune in with us when we're live.
You're such a pro, Ron. You're such a pro. You did the Pat Hughes. You painted the picture perfectly. You got a bright future in broadcasting ahead of you, my friend.
I appreciate that. That's a hope. That's a hope and a dream, but we'll certainly see. But Joe, as you said, man, it's good to be back on the mic with you. It's been a little bit. This was a fun one, despite, unfortunately, a Cubs loss. As we mentioned at the top of the show, the Cubs did lose tonight in Cincinnati by a final of 8-6. Jake got a little rocked, so he takes the loss and is now 3-3. As we mentioned, we will be back with you here from Cubs on Tap on Sunday after that game, and we'll be wrapping up this Cincinnati Reds series before the Cubs come back to Chicago to take on the LA Dodgers next week. Do want to remind you that Cubs on Tap is the official Cubs podcast of the On Tap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out everything for literary and podcasting needs about your favorite Chicago sports teams over at www.ontapsportsnet.com and at ontapsportsnet on social media. If you want to follow the pod-specific accounts, you can follow us at Cubbies, that's Cubbies on Tap on both Twitter and Instagram. And you can follow myself on Twitter at Loose on Tap, and you can follow Joe at Joe Kilgallen. And you can also go and check out Joe's YouTube channel. I highly recommend it. His comedy is fantastic. I've watched pretty much most of it, and I enjoy all of it. I encourage you to do the same. So once again, the On Tap Sports Network, go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Joe, this was fun, man. We'll get out of here the only way we know how to. We'll be back on Sunday. Let's go Cubbies.
Go Cubs.